the importance of Pegasus lies not in the fact that there's a new spying tool which we have bought at great expense, but the fact that the spying tool has been bought against the background of a campaign to stifle dissent. I frankly do not know, but there are certain obvious things. I have written maybe 200 articles in The Wire in the last 5 years, and maybe a few less, 150. But they are all comments on government policy, and they have been quite strong and they have been fairly consistent. They have not, in fact, abused anybody. I've not used any facts that are not put in I've not used fake information by any stretch of imagination. Everything I write is footnoted. But it is very critical. That's one thing. I've been particularly critical of his policy on Kashmir. I've been particularly critical of his policies towards China. And the reason is that I have been involved. I began writing on the Kashmir insurgency in 1990, and my first visit was really a secret visit on behalf of Prime Minister VP Singh, whose media advisor I was just about to become. And from then, I gave him my report, and I've been going. After I left, that government fell, I was able to go back to Kashmir and continue reporting. And I know just about everybody who's in the what is called separatist, but in reality autonomy as against Pakistan camp, which is the Hurriyat camp. And many of them have my phone numbers in their mobiles. And I'm sure that when these mobiles were seized, my number came up, and that they probably thought this is a person to be investigated, and they put the thing down there. I don't feel any sense of threat because nothing else has happened yet that suggests to me that this, if they have been going into my mobile, that they intend to do anything with it. They've certainly done nothing. Second point is that my mobile is an Android, and as you've seen, they're finding it very difficult to get into the Android. So the list may be there, but I'm not. I don't think I've been actually. My phone has actually been successfully targeted so far. Pegasus is only the latest device being used by any Indian government to snoop, spy on, keep itself informed on the activities of people within the country and outside the country, whom it feels it ought to know their actions, activities, and their views or their decisions, in order to safeguard themselves in various ways, either safeguard policies, or safeguard the law, or to safeguard their own political position within the country. Now, every government that does this, it snoops on its own people, but it does it within a framework of law. And the purpose of that is the safeguarding of the security of the state. It may be abused, and it has been abused. The US has abused it. In fact, almost every government which gets this kind of power sooner or later abuses it. But the question is, the abuse is occasional and it's on the fringes. When I came back to India and became a journalist in 1966, I was staying with my father, who was a very senior civil servant. And I once picked up the phone and called someone in the Pakistan High Commission, returning a call from him to an invitation. My father heard the call, and he realized, he asked me, "Are you talking to someone in the Pakistan High Commission?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Don't you realize that this phone is tapped?" I was suitably annoyed, shall we say. And I said, how dare they tap your phone, etc., etc. How can it be? He said, every single senior officer, I'll tell you, he was the foreign secretary. But he said every senior civil service officer in the government has his phone tapped. This is routine. What is more, after that happened, for the next 3 years, 3 to 4 years, right till I moved to Bombay and for a year or so thereafter, my phone used to be tapped, my own personal phone, when I moved away out to my father's house. And we always knew about it because the tapping was so primitive that they used to get a ping before the tapping began. So, and several friends of mine, also journalists, were also being tapped in the same way. But I laughed at it. And in fact, IB people came and asked my servants to report on who comes to my house, who eats, how much I spend, how much I earn. They reported to me, and I said, give them all the news. It doesn't matter. Because I was absolutely sure that the information was not being designed to harm me. It was intended, being collected to just safeguard, in a sense, the state. They picked the wrong target, basically. So I just laughed. I said, tell them whatever they want. If you want to see the purpose, you have to see the spread of the people who have been highlighted just now, whose phones have been listed. They're Supreme Court judges, they're ministers, they're opposition ministers, they're state ministers, they're their own BJP ministers. There are journalists, huge numbers of journalists. So the question is, what is this common thread which binds all of them? The common thread is only one. It is to safeguard the political position of the government, and it needs to be seen against the background of all the other steps that they have taken to safeguard this position. Is it of the government, or is it of Mr. Modi personally, or his close governmental group, or is it just simply to ensure that the BJP will remain in power forever? Whatever it is, the idea is to avoid any threat to the government and to use any means whatever to do so. And therefore, the importance of Pegasus lies not in the fact that there's a new spying tool which we have bought at great expense, but the fact that the spying tool has been bought against the background of a campaign to stifle dissent. Now, if you stifle dissent in a democracy, democracy dies. Because the fundamental definition of democracy, the most fundamental of many possible definitions, is an agreement in society to replace the bullet with the ballot. For that freedom to be there, for people to constantly say we prefer the ballot rather than the bullet, they must have freedom of dissent. Everything that the government has done today, from its changing of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, to its huge use of terrible laws like laws against sedition, terrorism, and the complete destruction of of habeas corpus by doing it all under the UAPA. All these are intended to, in fact, crush dissent, either through terrorizing people or by physically putting them in jail. And to do that, they have made certain examples so that we will not forget what is facing them. And the worst one of all is the BHIMA KOREGAON. As you know, now we all know, whatever the government may say, fake documents were inserted into the computers of virtually everybody who was arrested, including Father Stan Swami, who died in prison, in order to show that they are part of a conspiracy to assassinate the Prime Minister. Now, this particular Prime Minister has used this ploy to build his his position in Goa over and over, in Gujarat, over and over again between 2003 and 2014. If you look at the history of the number of, so-called attacks by Pakistani terrorists upon Narendra Modi and the encounters that prevented these attacks, you will see this list, a very long list there. So it's a similar thing that they have done. And they picked on BHIMA KOREGAON for a very good reason, which is BHIMA KOREGAON was a Dalit successful, success in dethroning the Brahmin Peshwa of the Maratha Empire. And the Dalit army had been recruited by the British, by the resident of the East India Company in the Nizam's court in Hyderabad. So it's got a very strong caste element in it too. So you pick that, you fake these things, you put everybody who's involved in supporting tribals, Adivasis, their rights in jail as an example. And so we need to learn from that there is a certainty that this Pegasus thing is intended to be used as an instrument of coercion, terror, and if necessary, incarceration in order to prevent criticism, which means to stifle dissent. Dainik Bhaskar reported honestly on COVID. So have hundreds of YouTube channel television groups. The difference between Dainik Bhaskar and them is, first of all, the huge circulation of Dainik Bhaskar, which is and also, secondly, it's in Hindi. Thirdly, it is on paper, so it can be kept and read well over the weeks. And most important of all, that they are vulnerable because they have actual physical premises. So a strong message has been sent out to the press, to the owners of the press, of the print media: beware, control your journalists. The goal of all this is to make sure that a government which has performed very badly on the economic front, and even worse on the COVID front, which is seen now by a large proportion of the population of this country as being irresponsible and uneducated and unwilling to listen to expert advice, is in power and never wants to leave power. So what we are seeing today is a slowly gathering, but I think it will probably accelerate in the coming 2-3 years, consensus that this government is actually dangerous for our future. Which they are actually accelerating precisely the sentiment that they should be trying to control by changing their policies, opening up, explaining more to the people, and above all, re-examining their economic policies. I just hope that the government will realize that actually they're digging their own grave. Unless they can prevent the democratic process from functioning altogether by having no election in 2024, they'll find it extremely difficult to stay in power. In fact, I would bet on them losing power in 2024.
We are truthful, unafraid, and independent because of you. Now you can help our reporting from the ground. Go to thequint.com, click Become a Member tab, choose a plan and pay. Because the truth is worth it.